Hey everybody, welcome back to the Home Seller Series. This is gonna be part 10, and I'm gonna go over the inspection period. It's very, very important. One of the most critical parts when selling a home. It's usually the most emotional, and this is where the roller coaster ride starts. And I'm here to give you confidence through this process. And please, I don't know how to ask you to watch this video, because if you're watching right now, you're already watching it. But I'm just hoping that when I sent you this playlist, that you really focused on this specific video, because this is where everything can get shaky. But we have the leverage if we do this the correct way, and we can get through this process together to ensure that you get the best deal possible. So just take a deep breath and let's get into it. So this home inspection time period is called the due diligence period. On the purchase and sale agreement, we saw a number. Typically, we see about 7 to 10 days. Lower numbers can be good because the home won't be off the market as long if the buyer wants to pull out due to things that they found on the inspection sheet. However, it doesn't give us a whole lot of time for negotiation. So it's a good thing to see about 7 days. They can get a professional home inspector in, review the report, and then send out what's called the ATAC. It's what I'm gonna go with you line by line, and it's gonna be what they request to either repair or replace for the home after they see the defects on the report. And the home inspection's necessary. I won't recommend a buyer to buy a house without getting a home inspection. You already know I'm not gonna represent a buyer when I list your property because that conflict of interest. However, I'm just speaking about a different property. Let's say I'm helping a buyer buy. It gives them the ability to find any hidden defects and the value of the home. How much money are they gonna have to put back into it when they were super emotional walking through the house, fell in love, enough to make an offer? What happens if that specific home has a bunch of defects and they're gonna have to come out so much money out of pocket they can't afford it? It's a necessary time for them to do it. So understand that if somebody requests the inspection to be done, don't worry about it. It's typical, and usually every single person gets one done. So there's 3 main elements of the home inspection that we need to cover here real quick so you can be confident through the entire process. And the first one is gonna be the home inspection itself. Somebody is gonna pay money out of pocket. Here in the state of Georgia, just so you know, it's a buyer beware state. So it's up to the buyer to actually purchase one. It's not mandatory. The money comes out of their pocket. So they wanted to make an offer, they make an offer, now they're coming money out of pocket to pay for this individual. So they are very serious at this point. But this is a main thing that you need to understand, okay? They are gonna pay somebody out of pocket to go and find defects, right? We're talking about the roof, the AC system, electrical, plumbing. They even check for doors and windows. And also, what you need to understand, they're going to thoroughly pick this house apart. Even on new construction homes, they find 10, 15, 20 defects wrong with the property, so do not freak out. But what sometimes happens is a buyer gets super emotional, they walk through your house, they're so excited, and the next thing you know, boom, a report with 80 items come back and they freak out. The right person will get on a Zoom call, go line by line and say, hey, these are the major things that need either replaced or repaired. These are cosmetic issues, don't worry about these. And they'll come to us on the ATAC and say, hey, we need these either repaired or replaced. So I'm just saying, when somebody pays money out of pocket, some home inspectors feel obligated to just completely pick the home apart item by item, and then they leave it up to the buyer and their realtor to be able to decide whether or not it makes sense to ask for those specific items or not. So when we get one back, don't freak out. It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna negotiate on your behalf, and we're gonna find that middle ground. The second element of this part right here is the buyer themselves typically goes with the home inspector, and this is best case scenario. And I ask every single agent, hey, is the buyer going to attend this? It's an advantage for us if the buyer's there. And the reason being is the buyer can ask the home inspector questions right then and there. Home inspector can say, hey, by the way, up on the wall, there's a little crack right there, but I just wanna let you know that most likely happened from settling. It doesn't look like it's getting any bigger. The home is X amount years old. Really no need to worry about it. Compared to reading a report, let's say the home inspector didn't have a whole lot of time to type it up and just took a picture of a crack in a corner and said something about foundation, that buyer's probably gonna freak out. But if they were there in person, they could have just gotten told, hey, it's not a big deal. So that's why I always recommend that the buyer attends. So it's actually a good thing if they show up and they're nitpicking the house, because that home inspector can really build a confidence needed in saying, hey, I know this looks bad, but it's really not as bad as it does seem. And the last thing is gonna be the home inspection report. This is gonna be a PDF file that's gonna be page by page that shows everything about the home. Sometimes they're 20 pages, sometimes they're up to 40 pages, and that's what the buyer's gonna have. Now, we do not have access to it without requesting it because the buyer bought it. However, if they request things to be fixed, I'm going to ask for that report so we can reference the report, and we will hop up on a Zoom call. I'll share my screen. We'll have that report on one side of the screen. We're gonna have the ATAC on the other side of the screen, and we're gonna decide whether or not we should either, accept everything and we can, get it repaired. Typically, this is what happens. They request a bunch of stuff and then they ask, hey, a contractor has to go through and do all of this work. That is a lot of money. What we need to do is go line by line, figure out what is reasonable for us to fix, and then we should negotiate on our behalf to see if we can do the work ourselves, right? Use the homeowner. If you can fix some of those things without having to hire out a contractor, it's gonna save you a lot of money. And what we need to do is we need to stay calm, and we need to make sure that we present it in a specific way that leverages it on our side, but also makes it seem like a win-win situation. So the buyer's getting some of the stuff that they need done, things that are reasonable, things that are fair, that aren't normal wear and tear cosmetic, things that should be fixed, but we meet in the middle so you still get the best deal possible. And when the time comes to negotiate, that means that we already read the report together, one-on-one. We haven't even contacted the buyer or their agent yet. We have read the inspection list to see if those things are fair. And there's 3 things we can do. Number 1, we can just accept and get everything done to how they asked for it. Number 2, we can negotiate. We can see if we ourselves can repair some of those things, or we cross the line off on some of those items and we send it back as a counter and see if we can find some middle ground so we don't do everything they're requesting, but still covering the things we should. Or number 3, what we can do is lower the sales price of the house and say, hey, I understand these repairs are gonna cost about $5,000. What we'll do is we'll just lower the house by $5,000. Now that can be total purchase price, or we can negotiate in a way that we're gonna come down $5,000 and give them $5,000 towards credit. So they get that $5,000, for example. It doesn't have to be $5,000, it could be $1,000, it could be $500, just depending on what they want fixed. And they can get that credit at closing so they themselves can get it done. After we close on the house, you get your check at the attorney's office and we are walking our separate ways. That's typically the different routes we can go. We'll talk one-on-one when it comes to the actual inspection report, and every situation is gonna be different, but know that I'm here for you and we are going to chase the best deal possible every single time, and we are gonna come out on top winning. But hey, don't tell them that because it's supposed to be win-win, you know what I mean? But still, at the end of the day, I represent you and I'm going to fight for you every single step of the way. Thank you for watching this video. If you haven't already, subscribe, stay tuned because we're gonna continue down the seller series, and I will see you in the next video.